The dress of the Pilgrim Woman is made up of 3 layers, an underskirt, a shift and a kirtle. So first the underskirt, wasn't something that they would historically have worn, but I wanted to be able to sculpt the dress. So we had to come up with a way of adding lots of wires on the underside of the dress that I could sculpt and bend and shape so that when the shift and kirtle flowed over the top, that we'd get that nice shape. So with myself and the Historic Stitching Group, we came up with this idea of creating a wearable underskirt that could be taken off easily off a dummy and then transferred onto my body. And the underside of that skirt has lots of channels running all the way along the base and all the way around the waist. So you can pop a length of wire in at the waist, run that down to the floor and then bend it as you go, so that you can really sculpt and shape that skirt so that it looks like the wind's coming through her skirts and it gives it shape and volume.
I'm quite happy with it actually,
right,
because it's really pulled it in.
Right.
So I think we get it in the rig on the mannequin.
Yeah.
Right. And then once we've got it in the right position, and then we can do what we did on the dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
To holding that, opening up the front, that comes out now back in.
The Historic Stitching Group are a group of ladies that work from Gainsborough Old Hall in Lincolnshire, and they recreate by hand historic items of clothing. And when they heard about my project, they said that they would like to help me to create an actual tout de gown. And they've done an amazing job. I can't believe the amount of fabric that they have hand stitched together. Every seam, every move, every tuck has all been done by hand, and it was such a fantastic experience to keep returning back week after week and going for fittings and seeing this dress form. And I was able to invite 2 of the group to come along with me to the foundry for the photogrammetry session. And I think that was really nice for them to be able to see the whole process from start to finish. And they was able to stitch me into the outfit, but they also understood the shapes that I wanted to try and create with the fabric. So whilst I was in the dress being stitched in it, I could guide them and say, you know, let's move this bit here and let's give that a little bit more volume. So it was a really nice process for them to see from start to end. The first garment that goes on top of the underskirt is the shift, which is like a giant shirt that you would wear. So a short collar, full sleeves with a cuff, and the shirt goes all the way down to the floor. They would have worn that at all times. They would have worn it in bed and under their clothes. So it was an everyday piece of clothing. Now you may be looking at the shift and wondering why it's bright blue. And that was because the photogrammetry could not see white very well. So because traditionally the shift would have been white, as the bonnet as well, we had to dye it at the last minute. And the only dye that I could find that quickly was an indigo blue. So I had to dye the shift. And a few days before going to the foundry, I'd got a ginormous shirt hanging on the washing line, bright blue. So that's why it's a different colour. So the kirtle is the piece that's worn over the top. It's made out of a really nice fine wool. And the only item that I changed on that was how it's fastened together. With working class dresses, the fastening would tend to be at the front or the side, because you don't have staff to dress you, so you'd need to be able to fasten it yourself. And as well, you probably wouldn't have had different clothes to wear through pregnancy, so you'd just be able to open up that kirtle a little bit more to allow for the growth of your stomach, and then after birth then you can fasten it up. But I knew I wanted to decorate the front of the kirtle, so we moved that round to the back so that I could put a decorative panel on the front and would have the fastening up at the back. A friend of mine, John Sterling, is a horticulturalist on the radio, and for his Mayflower project he'd put a call out on his show for anybody who'd got an apple tree grown from a pip in their garden that didn't resemble any other apples. And he had a great response and went to see this apple tree, and he said it was just unlike any other that he'd seen. After giving the tree a DNA test, they've found that it's a brand new variety, and he's called it Pilgrim 400. The apple is held in the Pilgrim Woman's hand, but to make sure that they captured the texture of the skin, the apple itself had its own scanning. So that was sat on a little plinth, and a handheld scanner passed over that to make sure they captured all of the information to add to that digital scan of the Pilgrim Woman.
So this is our highest resolution scanning method. This captures detail down to the width of half a human hair, and that means we can capture artists' fingerprints, or as you see on the screen at the moment, the tiny veins in the leaves are being captured.
The apple was found in the town of Southall, where another famous apple has come from, which is the Bramley, and that just happens to be my maiden name. So it was quite nice to be able to have an apple from the mother tree, but also those links with my family ancestry and the name of Bramley. Also, the apple symbolises so many other things as well. You know, you could see it as a new beginning, as they're taking seeds and growing what's become a whole new country. Originally, the apple had a stem and leaves, but it was felt after scanning that the leaves, once they'd become bronze, maybe a little weak and could be snapped off the sculpture. So after a bit of discussion, we decided to remove the leaves and stem from the apple and just keep it as the main fruit itself. The bonnet is the only item that's made out of linen. It's a really nice fabric. Also had to be dyed blue because originally it would have been a pale white. And also there's a headband, so that's just to hold any wisps of hair inside the bonnet so that you've got no hair visible at all. So you have a small headband and then the bonnet sits on the top. It's starched, so you've got a nice crisp roundness at the front of the face. We decided to use photogrammetry because it would enable us to pick up the most amount of information, and we needed to capture the texture of the woolen kirtle as well as the cotton of the shift, in addition to the hands and the face that would be visible. And photogrammetry works a little similar to the technology that you carry in your phone. So when you want to take a panoramic shot, sometimes the phone will give you a line to follow, and you just move your camera following a line, and the camera takes lots and lots of pictures and then stitches them together to make one nice long picture. Photogrammetry works in a very similar way, but instead of a flat linear piece, the photogrammetry stitches in a 3D shape. So there's 160 cameras. They all have an area to focus on, so which would be the Pilgrim Woman standing there in a pose, holding nice and still, and then the cameras will all fire at the same time. Those 160 cameras will have all taken a high resolution image of that zone, and then all the zones are stitched together in 3D form, so then you take it from a real life person into a digital format. Rather than using a static dress or a static dummy in the dress, it was important that we had a person wearing the dress to give it a proper human form. And it was suggested that it would be me. And at first I was a little bit unsure because this is the first time I've been in my own artwork. All the pieces that I've made up to now have been geometric shapes or quite fluid forms. They don't represent the human form in any shape or form. So this is the first time I was actually in the artwork. So to wear all of these clothes, to be stitched into this outfit it took 2 hours to be stitched into this, and slowly as another layer was added, and it changed your posture and the way you held yourself, and with the final pulling of the strings to fasten the kirtle at the back, really did sort of transform me into this Pilgrim Woman. And for that short period of 5 minutes of holding the pose while the cameras all flashed and captured their information, it was quite a strange experience for me to become part of my own artwork. Since the digital files have all been stitched together and I've seen myself in the computer, I don't think it looks like me, and even my own mum didn't recognise me in the picture because I had no hair showing and I'm in very different clothing. So already it feels like she's become her own person. So the Pilgrim Woman is her own person, and it feels still removed from me, but it was quite an experience.